Night Sword, one of the board members of TFW 2005, and actually a regular listener of the podcast.
What up?
Uh, you gonna say something?
I said what up.
Oh,
Just giving him a shout out.
recently he noticed a running change on the Transformers Power of the Prime Voyager Starscream mold. It seems that a lot of fans were recently having problems with the torso slash jet backpack connecting all together and everything, and apparently it was a big issue. And it seems that at some point Hasbro, very early on in the release of this toy, has already released a running change addressing that issue, that it now pegs properly together. Supposedly, if you want to identify this, the original box that has the problem has a assortment stamp of 72921, and the one with the problem completely fixed has a assortment number of 73101. I'll post the numbers in the description of the video too. And obviously Night Sword also posted some images showing the difference of how the peg works, and you could see very obviously how they fixed the peg, where originally it was a closed peg, which was very tight and it didn't fit in very well, or the new one's an open peg that has a little more give, so it fits
Yeah.
in properly. So I'll post the images too in the just to show it.
And what do you mean by running change? That's like, I
A
guess
running a running change is something that has existed since the beginning of G1. A running change is when a Transformer toy comes out and sometimes something is like the same toy is released again during its run, sometimes because of a cost issue, a safety issue that got overlooked. To give an example with Generation 1, Ultra Magnus, specific characters came with rubber tires.
right,
And then halfway through the run, they started getting plastic tires because rubber was more expensive, or the rubber on the tires were cracking. Sometimes it's something that happens in the factory.
right,
Sometimes you'll have a character that has a painted face, and then his second run of them has no painted face. Again, sometimes it's a budget issue. Sometimes, again, it's a safety issue. A good example in a modern era take was RC from Generations.
hmm
Her first version came with like it had fists that were open, and
Oh yeah, yeah,
people were having problems where they were putting the guns in, and it was sometimes breaking the thumbs, or the gun wouldn't go down all the way. And then they made closed fist versions
right,
for the second run of it. And that, on top of RC already being difficult at the end of the Generations line, made it even more difficult to find both versions. That's one minor example of it, but it's something that has always existed periodically through Transformers. Even like something like Beast Wars, that always had a pretty perfect run when it came to certain toys. But you had like some of the Transmetals. You had Optimus Primal that came in Transmetal with a blue, but there were some that were purple.
mm,
Like a more purple tinge instead of the blue on the vacuum plastic. And it was just a running change. And the reason for it, no one really knows. The Transmetal 2 Dinobot. There was like an off bone color, and then there was a white bone color.
right.
Why did they do it? Maybe to make one more show accurate, one not show accurate. Maybe it was a budget thing to achieve that color. We never really got the main reason, but it exists, and it's always existed through Transformers history, and it kept happening as time progressed. So again, sometimes it's a safety issue, sometimes it's a budget issue, sometimes it's an aesthetic issue. There's many different reasons, and in the case of this Starscream, it was more of a just a QC issue. Just wasn't able to achieve it with the original molding. They
Right.
kind of overlooked it. They didn't realize, because it was a combiner kind of thing, and so they didn't really pay attention too hardly to it. And it probably got caught very early on in the release, and then they made sure that the second run of these will have that fixed.
Yeah.
And the least the good thing in this case, where a lot of the running changes with certain Transformer toys, sometimes they're not noticeable when they're sealed in the packaging. Where in this case, at least we have an assortment number, so if you have it sealed, you're still able to know what you're getting.
Yeah.
So, and actually a good example of the running change too was that was very recent, was Trypticon. Trypticon had issues with his hips, and there was a
Ah.
change with that one also. So I mean, it's a thing that's part of Transformers, because when you have all those parts and pieces and everything's
Yeah.
moving around, it's always been a thing. And now we have something with just to let people know that it exists with your brand new, right on the shelves right now as we're buying, so super early, the Starscream. So keep an eye out for that. If you pick up a Starscream, you're going to want to pick up 73101, that version, to get the one that it pegs in properly.